There are 6 different rifle actions used in hunting today, and most hunters can only confidently explain 1 or 2 of them. The rest of the names get thrown around at the gun counter or in comment sections without anybody really breaking down what they mean, why they exist, and which one actually makes sense for the way you hunt. Today, I am going to walk you through every single one. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly how each action works, what it is genuinely good at, and where it falls short. Let's go. Alright guys, before I get into the list, I want to explain why this matters more than most hunters realize. When you are picking a rifle, the caliber gets all the attention. Everybody argues about 6.5 Creedmoor versus 30-06 versus 300 Win Mag, but the action, the mechanism that actually loads, fires, and ejects that cartridge is just as important to how that rifle performs for you in the field. 2 rifles in the exact same caliber, shooting the exact same ammunition, are going to feel completely different to operate, completely different to maintain, and completely different to trust under pressure depending on what action is built into them. So let's go through all 6. Action number 1, bolt action. The bolt action is the most common hunting rifle action in North America, and it has earned that position for very specific reasons. The way it works is straightforward. You manually lift a handle, pull the bolt rearward, which ejects the spent cartridge and cocks the firing mechanism, then push the bolt forward, which strips a new round from the magazine and chambers it, and rotate the handle back down to lock everything in place. Every single step of that cycle is done by your hand, which means there is no mechanical complexity relying on gas pressure or recoil energy to function correctly. That manual operation is exactly why bolt actions are considered the most reliable and most accurate action type available. There are fewer moving parts that can fail. The locking mechanism that seals the bolt against the chamber is typically the strongest of any action type, and because the receiver does not need to flex or cycle automatically, manufacturers can build an extremely rigid, extremely consistent platform around it. This is why almost every serious long-range hunting rifle and virtually every dangerous game rifle built for Africa or Alaska is a bolt action. The trade-off is speed. A bolt action requires a deliberate manual cycle between shots, which takes time and requires you to break your sight picture briefly to operate the handle. For most hunting situations where you are taking one careful, well-placed shot rather than multiple rapid shots, this is not a real disadvantage. But it is the reason bolt actions are not the choice for situations where a fast follow-up shot genuinely matters, like dangerous game encounters at close range or driven hunts where multiple animals may present themselves quickly. It is worth understanding where this design actually came from because it explains a lot about why it still dominates. The bolt action grew out of military rifle design in the late 1800s, with the Mauser system becoming the template that most modern hunting rifles still trace their lineage back to. Militaries needed a rifle that soldiers could maintain in mud, sand, and freezing cold with minimal tools and still trust to fire every single time. That same demand for absolute reliability under harsh conditions is exactly what makes a bolt action the right choice for a backcountry elk hunt in October sleet or a dangerous game safari in African heat and dust. The 2-lug or 3-lug locking system on most bolt actions also handles far higher chamber pressures than other action types, which is why almost every Magnum cartridge that pushes serious velocity and energy from the 300 Win Mag up through the 338 Lapua and beyond is built almost exclusively around bolt guns. If you ever wondered why you do not see many semi-automatic rifles chambered in the heaviest Magnum cartridges, this is the reason. The action itself has to be strong enough to contain that pressure safely, and a locked, rotating bolt does that better than anything else on this list. Action number 2, lever action. The lever action is the cowboy gun. It is the rifle from every Western movie you have ever watched, and it has a hunting heritage in this country that goes back to the Henry rifle and the Winchester model 1873. The mechanism works through a lever, usually located below the trigger guard, that you cycle downward and forward, which ejects the spent case, and then back upward, which chambers a fresh round and locks the action. What makes lever actions genuinely relevant for modern hunters, not just nostalgic, is speed combined with a flat profile. A skilled shooter can cycle a lever action almost as fast as a semi-auto, and the rifle itself, especially older designs chambered in classic cartridges like the 30-30 Winchester or 45-70 Government, tends to be lighter and more compact than a comparable bolt action. This makes lever guns extremely popular for hunting in thick brush, dense eastern hardwoods, and any situation where you are carrying the rifle through tight cover and need something that handles fast at close range. The limitation is cartridge selection and effective range. Most lever actions use a tubular magazine that runs underneath the barrel, and tubular magazines require flat-nosed or round-nosed bullets because a pointed bullet sitting nose to primer with the cartridge in front of it creates a genuine safety hazard under recoil. That restriction limits lever guns to cartridges that are not built for long-range performance. A 30-30 is excellent inside 150 yards on deer-sized game. It is not the tool for a 400-yard shot across an open field. Some newer lever actions use detachable box magazines that solve this limitation, but the classic tubular magazine lever gun remains a close-range brush country specialist. I want to mention something happening right now in this category because it is genuinely changing how relevant lever guns are for modern hunters. Hornady developed a line of ammunition called Lever Evolution specifically to solve the pointed bullet problem inside a tubular magazine. The bullet tip is made from a soft, flexible polymer instead of rigid lead or copper, which means it can sit safely against the primer in front of it in the magazine tube while still giving you a more aerodynamic profile than a traditional flat-nosed bullet. That single innovation extended the practical range of cartridges, like the 30-30, by a meaningful margin and brought a wave of renewed interest to lever guns from hunters who had written them off as a 100-yard brush gun and nothing more. Combine that with new big-bore lever options chambered in cartridges like the 450 Bushmaster and the 360 Buckhammer, designed specifically for hunters in states with straight-wall cartridge regulations, and you can see why lever actions are having a real resurgence rather than just riding nostalgia. Action number 3, pump action. The pump action, sometimes called a slide action, is most associated with shotguns, but pump action rifles have a real place in hunting, particularly in regions with specific regulations around semi-automatic firearms or among hunters who grew up with a pump shotgun and want that same operating feel in a rifle. The mechanism works by manually sliding a forend handle rearward to eject the spent case and cock the action, then forward to chamber the next round. Pump actions split the difference between bolt and lever guns in an interesting way. They are typically faster to cycle than a bolt action because the motion is a straight push-pull rather than a rotating lift, but they share some of the same limitations around recoil and complexity that lever guns have. The Remington 7600 is probably the most well-known pump-action hunting rifle in America, and it has a loyal following among hunters in the Northeast who value a fast-cycling, reliable rifle for whitetail hunting in thick cover where shots tend to be close and quick follow-ups matter. The honest limitation here is that pump-action rifles have never reached the mainstream popularity of bolt or lever guns, which means the selection of available rifles and aftermarket support is significantly smaller. If you want one, you are choosing from a much shorter list of options than you would with the other action types on this list. Action number 4, semi-automatic. The semi-automatic action uses the energy generated by firing a cartridge, either gas pressure bled off through a port in the barrel or the recoil impulse of the firing cycle itself, to automatically eject the spent case, cock the action, and chamber a fresh round, all without any manual input from the shooter beyond pulling the trigger again. This is the fastest action type for follow-up shots by a wide margin, and it is why semi-automatic platforms have become increasingly popular for hog hunting, predator hunting, and any situation where multiple animals or multiple shot opportunities are likely. The AR-10 and AR-15 platforms chambered in hunting-appropriate calibers have exploded in popularity over the last 15 years, specifically because they give hunters this rapid-fire capability combined with modularity. The ability to swap barrels, optics, and furniture to suit different hunting applications. For coyote hunters calling in multiple animals to one stand, or hog hunters dealing with a sounder of 15 or 20 pigs at once, the ability to fire multiple accurate shots quickly without breaking your sight picture is a genuine, significant advantage. The trade-offs are real, though. Semi-automatic actions are mechanically more complex, which means more potential failure points and a greater sensitivity to dirt, debris, and lack of maintenance in field conditions. They also tend to be slightly less accurate than a comparable bolt action because the action itself is cycling and moving during and immediately after firing, which a bolt action's rigid, locked breech does not have to deal with. For most big game hunting where one well-placed shot is the entire goal, this accuracy gap is not meaningful enough to matter. For competition-level, long-range precision work, it can be. There are actually two different systems hiding under the semi-automatic label, and knowing the difference matters if you are shopping for one. Gas-operated systems, which most modern hunting semi-autos use, bleed a small amount of high-pressure gas off through a port in the barrel and use that energy to cycle the action. This is generally smoother shooting and easier on the shoulder because the energy is metered and controlled. Recoil-operated systems, which most semi-automatic shotguns and a handful of hunting rifles use, rely on the rearward energy of the entire firearm moving under recoil to cycle the action instead. Gas systems tend to need more regular cleaning because that bled-off gas carries carbon and fouling directly into the action with every shot, while recoil systems run a little dirtier on the outside but stay cleaner internally. Neither system is objectively better, but if you hunt in genuinely dirty, sandy, or muddy conditions on a regular basis, that is worth factoring into which specific semi-auto you choose, not just whether you choose one at all. Action number 5. Break action, also called single shot or double rifles. This is the simplest mechanism on this list. A break action rifle hinges open at the breech, similar to a shotgun, allowing you to load a single cartridge, or in the case of a double rifle, 2 cartridges, directly into the chamber by hand. There is no magazine, no bolt, no cycling mechanism of any kind beyond the hinge itself. What break actions sacrifice in capacity and follow-up speed, they make up for in simplicity and reliability under extreme conditions. There is genuinely nothing to malfunction on a break action rifle beyond the most basic mechanical failure. This is part of why traditional double rifles remain a respected, if expensive, choice for dangerous game hunting in Africa, where a hunter needs absolute certainty that the rifle will fire when the trigger is pulled, with no chance of a mechanical jam at the worst possible moment. Single-shot break actions are also popular as a deliberately limiting choice for hunters who want to force themselves into taking only the highest quality, most carefully considered shot, since there is no follow-up round chambered and ready. The obvious limitation is capacity. You have 1 shot or 2 with a double rifle before you need to manually reload. For most modern hunting situations, this is a real constraint, which is why break actions occupy a smaller, more specialized niche than bolt or semi-automatic rifles. Action number 6. Falling block and rolling block actions. I am including this category because it shows up more than people expect, especially among hunters who appreciate classic single-shot rifles like the Ruger No. 1 or original Sharps and Winchester high-wall rifles from the 1800s. These actions use a solid block of steel that either drops vertically, falling block, or rotates, rolling block, to seal the breech when closed and expose the chamber for loading when opened, typically operated by a lever underneath the action. The appeal here is almost entirely about strength and precision rather than practicality. A falling block action can be built with an extremely tight, extremely rigid lockup that rivals or exceeds a bolt action strength, which is why falling block single shots have historically been chambered in some of the most powerful hunting cartridges ever made. They are not a practical choice for most hunters today, but they represent some of the finest precision rifle engineering in hunting history, and you will still find dedicated builders and a passionate community of hunters who choose them specifically for that heritage and that mechanical elegance. Before I get to the summary, I want to mention one more variant that does not always get its own category, but genuinely deserves a mention here: the straight pull bolt action. This is a hybrid that takes the locked, rigid breech of a traditional bolt action and changes how you cycle it. Instead of lifting the handle, pulling back, pushing forward, and rotating it back down, a straight pull action lets you cycle the bolt with a single straight back and forward motion, with the rotation and locking happening internally through a separate mechanism rather than through your wrist. Brands like Blazer and Browning have built a real following around this design, specifically because it closes much of the speed gap between bolt actions and semi-automatics while keeping the locked breech strength and accuracy that bolt guns are known for. It costs more than a traditional bolt action of similar quality, and the mechanism is more complex to manufacture, which is why you do not see it nearly as often as the standard rotating bolt. But for a hunter who wants bolt-action reliability with meaningfully faster follow-up shots, particularly on driven hunts in Europe, where this design originated and remains most popular, it is a genuinely interesting middle ground between two categories that are normally presented as opposites. So here's the full breakdown one more time. Bolt action, the most accurate and reliable, the standard for big game and long-range, slower follow-up shots. Lever action, fast, light, excellent in brush country, limited by cartridge selection and range, and currently enjoying a real resurgence thanks to better ammunition and new straight-wall chamberings. Pump action, a fast cycling middle ground with a smaller selection of available rifles. Semi-automatic, the fastest follow-up shots, ideal for hogs and predators, more mechanical complexity, and a small accuracy trade-off. Brake action, the simplest and most reliable mechanism that exists, limited to 1 or 2 shots before reloading. Falling block or rolling block, a precision-focused niche category built more on heritage and engineering than practical modern necessity. And the straight pull bolt, a hybrid that trades cost and complexity for a real speed advantage while keeping bolt action strength. Here is what I want you to actually take away from this video. There is no single best action. The right action depends entirely on how you hunt. If you are chasing elk at long range across open country, a bolt action is going to serve you better than anything else on this list. If you are still hunting whitetail in thick eastern hardwoods at 20 and 30 yards, a lever gun might genuinely outperform a bolt action for your specific situation. If you are running hogs off a property at night with multiple animals presenting shots in seconds, a semi-automatic is doing something none of the other actions on this list can match. Know what you actually hunt, and pick the action that matches that reality instead of just buying whatever is trending in the comment section of your favorite gun channel. One last practical note before I let you go. Whatever action you end up choosing, learn how to field strip and clean it properly before you ever take it hunting, not after. Every action type on this list fails for the same basic reason when it fails in the field, and that reason is neglect. A bolt action with a gummed-up bolt face from old oil and dirt will start having feeding issues. A semi-auto that never gets its gas system cleaned will eventually short stroke and fail to fully cycle at the worst possible moment. A lever gun with a dirty, dry action will start binding right when you need a fast second shot. None of these action types are magic. They are all machines, and machines need maintenance. Spend the 20 minutes with a cleaning kit before the season starts, and you remove almost every mechanical excuse for a rifle letting you down when it matters most. Now, I want to hear from you. What action are you running right now, and why did you pick it? Put it down in the comments below. I read every single one, and I want to know what is actually working for you in the field. If you have questions about any of the 6 actions I covered today, or you want my opinion on a specific rifle in any of these categories, drop it in the comments and I will answer everyone. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If this helped you understand your own rifle a little better, or helped you figure out what you actually need for your next purchase, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you have not already, because we are putting out content every single week that is going to make you a smarter, more informed hunter. Thank you for watching, thank you for your support, and as always, God bless. Bye y'all.